So between the ages of 6 and 8 years old, Lyle testified through tears. I mean, I was crying while I was watching it. That this is what he said, that his father started having sex with him. From 6 to 8.
Yeah.
And that it started with his father, like, giving him massages, and then he would, like, touch him, fondle him, basically, and then make Lyle do the same thing to him. And he said that this happened like 2 or 3 times a week. When he was 7 years old, he said that it became more involved and that his father would put him on his knees and guide his movements to basically perform oral sex acts on his father. And he started bawling at this point and said that he started to use objects like a toothbrush and some kind of shaving brush thing. And Lyle called these object sessions. He said eventually, quote, he raped me.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was asked by his attorney if he told his dad not to, he would say that he told his dad, I don't want to do this, it hurts. And his father would tell him that he didn't mean to hurt him and that he loved him.
So that's when he would tell him he loved him.
Mm-hmm.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So he was asked if he had told his mom, and he said that he told her to tell his dad to leave him alone, that he keeps touching me. And she told him, stop, you're exaggerating. And that his father had to punish him when he did things wrong.
That was his form of punishment?
Mm-hmm. And he said that when it asked him why he never told anybody else, he said that he never told anyone because his dad told him that it was, quote, it was our secret, and that, quote, bad things would happen to me if I told anybody, end quote.
And after his dad's teaching him all these random, he probably thought it was normal. After his dad showed him all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it stopped when he was 8 years old.
Yeah.
So only a couple of years.
Still.
But still.
At all.
Ever. Sick. So there's another point where things are very sad, and he was asked if there was something that he had done to his brother. And Lyle testified that he took Eric out to the woods with a toothbrush and did the same thing to Eric that his father had done to him.
Yeah.
And while he was on the stand saying this, he was just crying and just kept saying, I'm sorry, to his brother. His brother was there. I mean.
Yeah.
And Eric was crying. Lyle was crying.
He didn't know different.
Right. He was.
Monkey see, monkey do. Yeah.
Yeah. So when Lyle was 13, he had gotten inclination that now his father was doing this to his little brother. And he told his dad, I know what's going on with you and Eric. I've heard the noises and you need to leave Eric alone.
Yeah.
And his dad told him, Eric just makes things up, but then told him that it would stop and to keep it between them or he would kill him. So Eric never told Lyle that this was happening, but it had happened to Lyle. And he knew those things that transpired. And so whenever he got a feeling, he confronted his dad and said, leave him alone.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that in Eric's testimony as well. The next thing that's important to note is that Lyle testified that he still had a problem with wetting the bed until he was 14 years old.
Yeah.
Which is another huge sign of child abuse.
Yeah.
And when he was little and it would happen, he said his father would make fun of him and say that he was a sissy like his brother and that his father would explode. He would beat him when this would happen. At 12 and 13, when it was still happening, he said that his mom did more of the punishing and that she would rub his face in the sheets. She wouldn't clean the sheets. She would refuse to clean the sheets and that he would just sleep on the floor. One time it had happened and she threw all of his stuffed animals out the window, all of his, animals that he was very attached to.
Yeah.
And that sometimes he would be locked outside, like I had mentioned previously, for this thing that he couldn't control. That. And he said that it kind of came in waves. Sometimes he would and sometimes he wouldn't, and he just didn't understand why. And he was never, taken to a doctor. He was never anything like that.
Yeah.
In regards to his relationship with his mom, he had recalled that she was never gentle or affectionate to him and that he just thought she hated him because that's what she always told him.
Yeah.
That's the only thought that he had really of his mom is she just hates me.
Yeah.
He said that on at least 15 occasions that she would take them to the mall with her when she would go shopping and she would just leave them there, or she would just like leave them in a store and they would have to like try to find her, or they would just get picked up by security and she wouldn't come get them until she was like done shopping. And this happened until he was 10 years old. So 10 and under. She was just leaving him in the mall.
Bye.
Mm-hmm. Whatever.
Okay.
She would have like these episodes of like rage is what they called it. And Diane testified to these rages as well. And another cousin had testified to it as well. And they all had the exact same description of her. She would like ball her fists and like clench her face and all of her muscles would just be tense and she would just
shake.
Yeah. And her face would turn red and like veins would bulge out. And then she would just start like screaming. He said that she would throw things. He was starting to cry at this point again, because a lot of the times this rage was depicted at Lyle for no reason. He described it as an explosion. And she would tell him, "You're a bastard. You're ungrateful. Wait till your dad gets home. I hate you. You ruined my life." Those things. And he said it was very confusing to him as a child because you never knew when it was going to happen. She would just explode.
Yeah.
Sometimes she would put Lyle under her bed on a regular basis until his dad came home, sometimes for hours. And he said it was very small. You couldn't he would crawl under there on his belly, but you couldn't turn over.
Yeah.
There was no room that he couldn't even turn over. And they also had a pet ferret, and that's where the ferret liked to go to the bathroom.
So he's letting a ferret. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He said it was terrible. Again, he's crying.
Yeah.
During this, recalling all of this. He says that sometimes his mom would get so bad that he would go to his dad and say, "You got to do something to help mom," because she was just nuts.
Yeah.
And Jose would just tell Lyle to just avoid her. So that's pretty much what he tried to do most of the time. He said that specifically one time he had told his dad that he needed to help her because he was observing her help Eric with his homework, and he had made a mistake or answered a question wrong. And she would grab the paper and slam it on the desk, and then she would rip it up into pieces, and then she would just start hitting him for being a child and not knowing
what's going on.
Yeah. He said this happened a lot, but he said on that specific occurrence that he recalled that this was whenever he went to his dad and was like, "Dude,
please
do something."
Yeah.
And like I said before, he said when she was in a rage, she would punch him. She would drag him by his hair. She kicked him. She threw things at him. One time she chased him with a kitchen knife. She used to lock them in their room all day from the outside. And he said that if he needed to go to the bathroom, he would either go out the window, or they had put a plastic tub in their closet, or he kept it under his bed. And that's what he would go to the bathroom in.
Oh my goodness.
Another violent instance with his parents when he was about 7 years old in the second grade. He had brought a rabbit home from school because it was the end of the year and they had class pets and they were sending them home with people.
Yeah.
And so Lyle brought a bunny
Yeah.
rabbit home and showed his mom, and she told him that his dad wanted him to get rid of it and that he couldn't keep it, things like that. And he didn't. He kept it. He was just hoping that they would change their mind or that they would just not really care that much and he could just keep it.
Yeah.
He had it in an aquarium thing in his room. And a couple days later, he had came home from school and noticed that it wasn't there, that it was missing. He asked his mom where it was, and she was like, I don't know. Ask your father. He told you to get rid of it and you should have.
Yeah.
And he found the rabbit in the trash can, beat to death.
Oh, that's horrible.
Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, he said that he and Eric put it in a shoebox and brought all of his stuffed animals outside so that they could bury it and have a funeral for it.
Oh.
I know. So let me just interject and add something. Oziel had painted Lyle to be this mean, loud, angry, just yelling all the time, type personality. And I can't even tell you how many times during his testimony that the judge had to say, "Speak up, we cannot hear you."
Oh, so he's very calm.
Very soft-spoken, both of them. I mean,
yeah.
which I'm sure given the circumstances doesn't help, but like,
still you'd see a little bit of his character there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very just like reserved and seemed very soft-spoken to me.
I mean, I feel like if you get yelled at by your parents all the time, you're probably pretty quiet.
Pretty submissive.
You do whatever you gotta do to just stay over here.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So one time when he was 11, he was in another room or like in the dining room and his mom was in the kitchen cooking and he had like called out for her, like called her name like mom or whatever. And she cut herself with the knife that she was using. And he said that she had like blood all over her hand. And then she like came to Lyle and pushed him up against the door and rubbed her hand all in his face. His bloody hand all on his face and saying like, see what you did to me. And then made him sit and eat dinner with the blood all over his face. And he said he just remembers being so upset about that because he was afraid that she was going to make him go to school like that the next day too.
I wish she would have.
Yeah, no joke. Maybe then somebody would ask some questions.
Yeah, get some help.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
He had went to a sleepaway soccer camp one time. And he remembers that he was very homesick. He never spent the night away from home. He was always home.
Mm-hmm.
And he would call home and cry to his mom that he wanted to come home. But she said that she was going to make him stay the whole 2 weeks. And they had an argument about it.
2 weeks?
That she wasn't going to come and get him. It was like a week by week thing.
Okay.
And so she was going to make him stay 2 weeks. And they had an argument about it. And he's testified that he called her again the next day. And she just ignored the call. She wouldn't take the call or any calls that he had made to her after that. And he called her every day, multiple times a day.
Mm-mm.
And he said that he would just, when she wouldn't answer, he would just pretend to be on the phone anyway because he was embarrassed.
Yeah, that my
his
own mother ignored me.
Mm-hmm. While all their friends were talking about, you know, what their parents said or they missed them or, you know, they can't wait for them to come home or things like that. And that he would just like sit by himself and just pretend to be on the phone. It makes me sad.
I could call my mom right now and she'd come here.
Yeah, anywhere.
Literally anywhere. I was stuck in Arkansas one time and that girl drove 7 hours and got me.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
So I've talked about his stuffed animals from Diane's testimony and that his mom had thrown them out the window before. He said that he started collecting them when he was very little. I mean, that's a normal thing for little kids to have lots of stuffed animals. He said that he had many of them and he collected them and played with them still until he was 17 years old. And, 17. And each one had a name and their own personality. And he would he said that he had some that were the weak ones. And then he had some that were mean. And then he had some that were like neutral. Like he said that they would be like act as like judges and things like that. Watching him talk about it, he was like very
like animated about it.
Yeah.
Well, those were his friends.
Yeah. His only friends, probably.
Yeah.
He said that he would create very elaborate storylines for hours. And he would even stay up late in his bedroom, like just, you know, playing and being in his own little world with his stuffed animals. He said that this time that he had with his stuffed animals was very important to him and that he didn't have much free time because he was always practicing tennis or swimming or, you know, school or this or that. And he didn't have much free time, but he said any bit of free time that he had, he was with his stuffed animals.
That's where he wanted to be.
Mm-hmm. He felt safe.
Yeah.
And his family knew that. I mean, his family knew that he cared for these stuffed animals and that a lot of the times that they would use them against him, like his mom throwing them out the window.
Yeah.
And sometimes Eric would, you know, take a stuffed animal and hide it or like whatever, things like that.
Yeah.
One day he said he took all of his stuffed animals to class with him when he was 16 and his teacher kicked him out of class.
Well, you are 16. So.
Yeah. I mean, that does make me laugh. But it's so innocent. That's why, you know.
It is. It's very innocent, especially at 16. It's very, I mean, think of the people we were with at school at 16. Think about a stuffed animal being brought anywhere in that school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's harsh, man. And he went on to say that those stuffed animals got him through his teenage years by taking him from his world to
just a different place.
Somewhere else. And that they were very comforting to him in times of stress.
It's fair. Yeah, I think people still hold onto their like childhood blankets. Like that's their safe space. So,
yeah. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
He had a girlfriend named Stacy at 16. It was really like his first like serious girlfriend. They dated for a few years, and they brought a Valentine's Day or birthday card or something that Lyle had written for her. And he was asked if he remembered it. And he's like, oh yeah, I, gave her some roses or something with this card. And they have him read it. And it says like, all my love, something, thinking about you or something like that. And then it's signed individually by every stuffed animal and all their names. And like some of them are named like Bunny 1 and 2 or Teddy 1, 2, and 3. Like, and they were all, every one of them. And he read out every one of them. And at the end of the letter, it says, oh yeah, not to mention me too. And I was like, oh. And he's like reading it and he's like smiling while he's reading their names. It's like the sweetest thing.
Yeah, that is a very nice thing.
Could you imagine though, at 16, your boyfriend?
I'd have broke up with him.
It's sad. It hurts my feelings.
It is sad. But we were also raised to date a man. It was just like, it was our expectation.
Well, he didn't know any better.
Not our expectations. No, but yeah.
I hear you.
That's where I'm like, I wouldn't have been for me. I would have been like, this is very sweet, but you should probably talk to somebody else. Because it is very, very sweet. Yes. But not Oziel.
Amen. Oh, that was something that I was going to say at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Oh, crap. I said that Dr. Oziel was court appointed.
Mm-hmm.
He was not. He was recommended by the family's attorney.
Okay.
He was not court appointed, but it was like...
He had to do therapy.
Yeah.
But he could pick his therapist.
Basically, something like that.
Okay.
But he was not court appointed. I just want to get that out there. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Sidebar.
Any hoosers.
So getting back into the relationship of Lyle and his mom again, because not only was his father a horrible man, his mother was disgusting.
She sounds like it.
She used to show Lyle photos of her when she was younger, either in a bathing suit or lingerie. She would ask him how she looked while she was either topless, or she would walk up to him and open her robe and like fish for compliments from her son when he was 11 years old.
No.
Absolutely not.
I would say you look fucking disgusting. I'd be...
Yeah. He said he was very embarrassed by this.
Yeah.
Then he testified to what Diane said, that she would come in the bathroom while he was in the bath and wash his hair and sponge his whole body from whenever he was 11 to 13 years old.
Because that's also a time where you're going through puberty, and even though you may not actually like the advancement, his body might still be reacting, even though it's not something he's actually enjoying.
Mm-hmm.
And that would definitely give him shame for the rest of his life.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's about to get worse.
So you don't mean it,
Yeah. He also still slept in the bed with his mother from ages 11 to 13 when his father was not home. And that he said he would touch his mom, quote, everywhere, and she would kiss him. And that whenever he was 13, he stopped doing it and said that she was absolutely furious about this and just harassed him for years afterwards, like continuing to expose herself to him. She would pick him up from sports practices only in a robe. She would call him into a room like if she was changing without him knowing that she was changing, and ask him if she looked pretty, and
throw herself at him,
mm-hmm.
at her son.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, where's the shotgun? Because I need it. That is awful.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
It's horrible. She, as he got older and started to date, things got worse, as you can probably imagine. She thought that every girlfriend that he was with was a gold digger and that no one was good enough for him. She would humiliate his girlfriends, he said. She would say horrible things to them. His dad and her would call them sluts and bimbos, and, nobody was good enough for him.
Okay, but she hates him, so...
He dated a model named Christy in 1989, and his mom despised her. Like I said, she called her a slut, a bimbo, a gold digger, and she even told him that she thought that Christy had AIDS because she was a model, and that she was never to be allowed in their house and wouldn't let Lyle sit at the dinner table with them and eat dinner because he was dating her, and that he had to eat on paper plates because he couldn't eat off the same dishes as them.
Give me the paper plate.
Yeah. And he was eventually forced to break up with her. At one point in their relationship, Christy thought that she was pregnant, and Jose approached her and paid her to get an abortion. And their relationship ended shortly after that.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. He said that his father basically taught him his whole life that you can't trust anybody, not even your own father. And that if you did, then you had to deal with the consequences. So he said one time they were on the tennis court when they were teenagers. Eric was about 13, and he testifies to the same thing. He was struggling with practice. He was dragging his feet, and Jose had been telling him to keep moving your feet, keep moving, and he wasn't. He was getting tired, and he picked him up by the shirt and threw him against the fence. And Lyle was basically like behind his father, like telling Eric, like, it's okay, just don't cry, like stay calm. Without his dad like hearing it, because obviously that would just piss him off more.
Yeah.
But he wanted to keep Eric from freaking out and crying so that his father wouldn't
get worse
with him.
Yeah.
Another time with his father, and this is part of like their like evidence that they would try to use, because obviously there's really not a lot of physical evidence of this abuse, but each brother they have some scars and things on their bodies, face, arms, legs. And so in the regards to a scar that Lyle has on his left eye, he said that was from being thrown into the coffee table by his dad. They were playing and kind of like roughhousing or whatever, and he like grabbed his dad's junk basically, and his dad like picked him up and threw him into the coffee table, and it split his eyeball open. And there's pictures of him as a child with a black eye and a big old gash. He also has a scar like right here on his chin under his lower lip.
Yeah.
From whenever he was 17. He was at tennis practice, and his dad had called the coach, which was Coach Wadlington, to have the boys practice in the rain. And the coach said, normally we wouldn't. I would just ignore that and just be like, no, it's fine. Like, we'll practice indoors. But that day he was like, okay, I guess. So they went out to the outdoor court to practice in the rain, which they said, thankfully we did, because his dad showed up, and had his dad shown up and they had not been there, everybody was getting the wrath.
Yeah.
His dad showed up to watch, and Lyle had been nursing an ankle injury that he had, and his dad was calling him a baby because his ankle was hurting. And Lyle told his dad to shut up. Like, shut up, Dad, you know. He just nag. And he said that his dad picked up a tennis ball and threw it at him, and he didn't move. He let the ball hit him, and his coach was like, why did you do that? And he's like, because if he didn't hit me, then
he's going to do it again.
He was going to hit me again anyway.
Yeah.
So he said he let the ball hit him to hope that would be the end of it. He said his dad then came over to him, took him to the car, like by his arm, drug him, put him in the car, and then just clocked him in the face with a closed fist.
Yeah.
Just punched him in the face. And he said that he grabbed him by the neck and like pushed him up against the window and said, don't ever embarrass me like that again, or I'll kill you. His mother never asked him what happened, didn't care that his lip was split, whatever.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, she didn't give a shit about anything. So in 1986, Lyle said that Eric had found a letter that upset him that was written by Kitty, and that it was a suicide note. It said, quote, she couldn't handle the shame of a divorce from Jose. She had no way out. She was sorry that she had to take this way out, and she was leaving, end quote. And this was after learning that Jose was having an affair. And when he found out about this, he pretty much went to his mom and tried to give her support and said that, you know, if you divorce Dad, we'll be on your side. We'll come with you. You know, we can just go live together. We'll be okay. And he said that she was defensive to him, and how dare he accuse her of not being happy in her marriage. He just said that it hurt him how much his mother hated him. And he's sitting here trying to
be nice.
Mm-hmm. I mean, both of them did everything they could to make their parents happy, regardless if that they wanted to or not.
Yeah.
I mean, everything they did was to make sure that their parents were not mad, and they were just mad anyway. all the time.
It's so miserable.
Absolutely miserable. Around the same time, well, really like a year after this suicide note, his mom threatened to poison herself and the rest of the family. Even Jose believed that she was capable of that and that she would do that. And so they just refused to eat the food that she made sometimes. And their dad would just take them out of the house to eat. And he was asked, he was like, well, sometimes did you eat the food? And they were like, yeah, sometimes we did, but it all just depended on what dad's opinion was. And they were like, well, how did your dad know? And he said he could just tell based on mom's mood if the food may have been poisoned or not. So they just relied on
whatever
he said.
Good night.
Mm-hmm. He said as he got older, the hatred from his mother only got worse. And she just constantly told him that she hates him and that he ruined her life. In 1987, he wrote a letter to his mom when he was on a trip for tennis about how he was worried about her and that he loved her, and said there was a line in there that said, "You're the only mother I have or would want. I hope things are all right at home with Dad and Eric, and I miss you all." He said that he loved his mom very much and he was always worried about her and reached out to her many times to give her support and love, and she just didn't care. She never really acknowledged it. And watching him testify, it's like the times that he would talk about how much his mom hated him was like the worst for him.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, that's like the one person that
that's
you're
like
connected
obligated.
to your whole
obligated
life.
to love you. Like, not obligated.
Yeah.
Well, yes, obligated, but like, it's the one person you truly expect to love you no matter what. Mm-hmm. There is a bond there that you will always have with your mom no matter what.
Yeah. In 1989, she told Lyle that she was taking 13 pills a day just to get through the day, and that it was Lyle's fault because he was stressing his dad out, and that's why she had to take the pills.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Logical.
I have to take 13 pills because I'm a crazy person, but it's your fault.
Yeah.
Because your dad hates you. What does that have to do with you, kitty?
Nothing.
You're a nut job.
It just sounds miserable. All of it, the whole existence
and
for everybody.
It's so sad because hearing all of this stuff come from their mouths, they still would say that they love their mother so much, that they feel bad, that they wish they hadn't done what they did, like that they still looked up to their father.
Yeah.
Like it was still, they still love their parents and they still thought that they should love them no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's what's really sad about the whole thing to me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, but do you hear
what
you're saying?
Yeah.
But they still loved them. Lyle testified that he started to lose his hair when he was 14 years old from stress.
Yeah, I would too.
He said that he was teased about it. So in the summer of 1987, Jose had basically told Lyle that he was going to go into politics, and that since he was losing his hair, he would just continue to lose it at this point. It was time that he needed to get a hairpiece. So he was wearing a hairpiece at 19 years old. He didn't tell anybody this, not even Eric. Eric had no idea.
Oh.
He said when asked, like I said, I've said this a million times because this was asked so many times during the trial, why did you never tell anybody? And he said, fear of my dad, for sure. And he said, I felt so much lesser than my dad, and I had lots of shame and lots of embarrassment, and I just didn't allow myself to think about it. So that's basically the recount of the things that happened to him during his childhood. The bulk of things. That's not everything, but those are the big ones that it's like, holy cow, you poor child.
Yeah, that's all really, really sad.
So all of this was happening to him when he was a child. But the reason that they said that they killed their parents was because they were scared that their parents were about to kill them. And I'm going to tell you why. The Tuesday before, August 20th, Lyle had an argument with his mother in the den. Eric had showed up while she was screaming, yelling. She was throwing her arms around at Lyle and saying, you're going to be the cause of your father's death. Just having an explosion. She started attacking him about his hair, and she grabbed it and ripped it off. And it's held with like a glue, like a bond type. Mm-hmm. And it's like sticks for a while. It's heavy duty.
Yeah.
Just ripped it off. And Eric saw it. And Lyle said that he was just so embarrassed. And Eric followed him to the guest house that Lyle stayed in and told him that he needed to talk to him. Like right after that, he was like, we have to talk. Because he was just in shock of
Everything.
what just happened in front of him. Because he was like, I didn't know that you had a hairpiece.
Yeah.
You know? So Lyle said that Eric told him that he was sad that there were so many secrets in the family and that they weren't a family and that he was sorry of what was going on. And Eric started to cry and tell his brother, he said those things are still happening with his dad. Lyle said that he had felt very guilty for not protecting him, but that at this point, Lyle realized that he had no choice but to confront his father and threaten to tell everyone to make it stop. Something that's really, this is like a sidebar, something that's really interesting when listening to both of them talk about each other is that when Lyle would talk about Eric, he would say Eric and his dad. It was never Eric and our dad or Eric and my dad. It was Eric and his dad. And when he was speaking about himself, he would say my dad. It's very strange. I thought that was a little interesting.
No, it is.
I don't know what the...
Well, even us, we say our dad.
Yeah. I don't know what like the psychology is behind that, but there's got to be
maybe they just
something.
Got two different parts of him at different, like maybe they felt that way.
Yeah.
There's got to be something there though. Yeah, that's...
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
It is a different thing.
So they had this conversation in the guest house and this is the first time that Eric said it out loud to Lyle that this was happening.
Mm-hmm.
He said those things are still happening with dad or with my dad, whatever. So the next day, Wednesday, they spent the day together. They tried to keep things positive and normal. And Lyle was telling Eric, like, hey, maybe I can bring you back to Princeton with me. You can go to school with me. You can get out of the house. And that, dad would probably just let you go. And all of this would be over.
Yeah.
We would never have to say anything to anybody.
This is our break.
If I just tell him that if it doesn't stop, I'm going to tell everyone, maybe he'll just back down and just let you go.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, Lyle said that he felt like he could talk to his mom and that she could convince his dad to stop because she would want them out of the house anyway to get rid of them. He said that he told her, quote, there were going to be some changes with regards to Eric living in the house, end quote, and that she didn't understand. And he said he knew dad was doing things to Eric. And she said, what things? And he said sexual things. And she exploded and told him that Eric was lying and that he was going to have to talk about this to his dad because she wasn't going to deal with it.
Great. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. So he started to get a little more nervous about it because he thought maybe that this whole time, like, she just didn't know and that she didn't like understand or didn't realize like the severity of the situation. But this is like they're 18 and 21 years old at this point.
Yeah.
So Lyle said that he spent hours in the living room preparing what he was going to say to his father when he came home on Thursday. He ended up coming home a little bit later than he was supposed to. But regardless, when he came home, when he walked in the door, Lyle told him that he needed to talk to him. Lyle said, quote, I know everything that was going on with Eric and that it has to end, end quote. He said that Jose didn't say anything to him while he was speaking. He didn't look at him. And Lyle just like kept talking. And when he stopped, he finally said, are you finished? And Lyle said that he just looked at him and said, yes. And his dad said, quote, you listen to me. What I do with my son is none of your business. I warn you not to throw your life away and to stay out of it. End quote.
Okay.
And then he said, let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to go to Princeton and Eric is going to go to UCLA. And we're going to forget this conversation ever took place. At this point, Lyle said that he started to like lose control of himself in the situation. And he said, he told his father, you're a fucking sick person. Don't touch my brother again.
Yeah.
And threatened to tell everybody everything and tell the police and all the people in the family. And he was just going on about what I'm going to tell this person. I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell, cousins, aunts, the police,
everybody.
And that was his threat, was to tell everyone. He said his father relaxed, sat back in the chair, and said, we all make choices in life, son, Eric made his, and now you've made yours. Lyle said that he knew that he had just made it so much worse and felt that he had put himself and Eric in danger and that Jose was going to kill him.
Yeah.
Because Lyle had threatened to ruin him.
Yeah. And Eric clearly had by telling Lyle, so.
Yeah. So, he was like, oh shit, they're going to kill us. He's going to kill me.
This is it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Because even at that point, no matter where you go.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that's what they said too. They were like, there was nowhere that we could go where our father wouldn't find us.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that.
Just keep in mind, this is all Lyle's testimony. So it's a little bit, there's some pieces that seem to be missing, but it will come back in.
With Eric.
Mm-hmm. So shortly after this conversation Lyle had with Jose, Eric came into the guest house screaming, "Mom knows, Mom knows." He was screaming and crying. And Lyle told his mom, "How could you have known? Why didn't you do anything?" Because she was chasing him. And she chased him into the guest house and she was there. They were all three there. And Lyle told her, "How could you have known? Why didn't you do anything?" And she told him, "Nobody ever helped me." And then she said that she hated them and just ran out. And so at that point, Eric said, "They're going to kill us." Then told Lyle that Jose came to him in his room and, quote, did something to him. And Lyle didn't know what. And he was yelling at him about how Eric had betrayed Jose and that he was never going to let Lyle ruin him. And then Lyle agreed that he thought that they were going to kill him as well.
Yeah.
So that was when they both had this moment where they were
epiphany.
like,
this is it.
Yeah. They thought that they were going to run away, but they thought that there was nowhere that they could hide where they wouldn't find them. And that would just make it worse, because if they left the house, then they would automatically assume that they were out telling people.
Yeah.
So they were like, we can't go anywhere. I mean, these brothers were in such fear. They just knew at this point that it was a matter of time before they could be killed by their parents. And they said that they couldn't go to their family because everything always got back to their parents from all throughout their lives. If anything that they had told an aunt or an uncle or whatever, somehow the parents always found out.
Yeah.
It was like everybody looked up to Kitty and Jose. They said that they felt that they couldn't tell the police because all they would do is just maybe press charges on Jose and then they would be dead for sure.
Yeah.
And didn't think that the police would be able to protect them because their dad was such a rich man with a lot of power.
Yeah, he's already sweat him once for Eric when he got arrested.
Mm-hmm. Again, when they were asked why they didn't run away, he said that it wasn't safe and that they would find them because his father had connections to find them and to have them killed.
Yeah.
And so that night they stayed together and spent the night in Lyle's guest house. Friday morning, they talked again. Eric was kind of just like acting like everything was fine. He was out on the tennis court, playing tennis, just practicing, basically to himself, keeping his mind off things. He didn't want to think about it. And Lyle was like, hello?
Wait, a lot of shit happened.
Do you realize like what's going on? This is serious. And Lyle said that he just felt really lost and unsafe at this point because he was like, what
is everyone doing?
What are we doing?
Yeah.
And they kind of had a conversation and they decided that they needed to get some guns for protection. They went to a Big Five sporting goods store in Santa Monica, California, and had attempted to buy handguns because they're smaller, more concealable. They can keep them on them, just in case anything were to happen. But they were unable to because there was a waiting period of 2 weeks in California before you could get it. And they felt like that they could not wait that 2
long.
weeks
Yeah.
without any kind of protection. But they were told that they could only buy rifles or shotguns over the counter. They left that store and kind of drove around, recalculated. At this point, Eric started to tell Lyle the details of what had been happening to him all these years. He realized at that point that Eric's situation was way worse than what Lyle had gone through as a child, and that Jose had been threatening his life this whole time, that if he ever told Lyle, he would kill Lyle, and then it would be Eric's fault. He had been threatening him from day one, basically, not to tell anybody, and especially Lyle, because if you tell Lyle, then I'm going to kill him, and then you have to live with it.
Yeah.
So he never did. So during that drive, they ended up in another Big Five